Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Lisanti, the Director of Sales at Beere&Purves. Thank you very much for participating in today's webinar on ARPA and specifically CalCOBRA. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. It is a webinar, so everyone's on mute and off video, so you don't have to worry. We welcome questions. Just type them in during the presentation and I'll review them at the very end. The webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes, so if we don't have time to get to all of the questions during the webinar, we'll certainly circle back to you. And of course, you can always reach out to the B&P sales team. We're always happy to help. Lastly, after today, we will be sending out a copy of the recording and the presentation. We were hoping to have all the major carriers as of today, and one carrier we're still pending. So assuming we get that here shortly, we may hold off and send the presentation once that information is added. But we'll go ahead and get started with what we have today. All right, so first of all, a disclaimer. As I said, I am a sales director. I am not an attorney or a tax professional, so I will always defer to the professionals for specifics. And if you were on the same webinar a week ago, the information has changed and evolved as the regulatory bodies, the Department of Labor, the IRS, the Treasury have all been releasing more clarifications on information. And we always recommend that, we work directly with the carrier you are specifically working on as a group specific, so that we make sure that we're dealing with the most current information. All right, today's agenda, we're going to be covering very quickly just a COBRA/ARPA overview in very general. We're going to spend most of the time focusing on how Federal COBRA may differ from state or CalCOBRA. We're going to cover how all of our carriers are currently handling CalCOBRA, answers to common questions, and then of course the Q&A as I alluded to earlier. So first of all, this slide tells you that we all probably very familiar with normal COBRA and CalCOBRA under normal circumstances. If you've been in the business for a while, you probably have the specifics down. However, as a result of the pandemic in 2020, the EBSA disaster relief notice occurred. And what this did was this gave people beyond what we're used to, the normal 60 days for people to elect COBRA or CalCOBRA, it gave them actually up to a year to elect COBRA. Now, it's only specific to Federal COBRA, not CalCOBRA. This specific one, the disaster relief, the extended year is only for Federal COBRA. And I can take my sweet time and I can debate and figure out, do I really want Federal COBRA? Maybe I'm, hey, lucky, it's been 11 months since I was eligible and I haven't had any medical claims, so I don't want to, well, I pay the premiums, but then that last month that I'm eligible to elect retro, I have a bad claim and I say, oh, I do want to elect COBRA now to help pay for this expensive claim in my last month. At that point in time, the Federal COBRA member can go back and elect Federal COBRA. However, beware that it goes back to the original eligibility date, and we will be paying retro premiums all the way back to my first initial eligibility date. So I can take my sweet time and take up to a year to elect Federal COBRA, but once I elect, I will have to pay retro premium back to whenever that original eligibility date is. But today we're going to be spending most of our time on the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, affectionately known as ARPA, or some people call it ARP. And there's a lot to it, but we're going to be focusing on the COBRA, CalCOBRA subsidies that are involved in ARPA. All right, so here's just a quick overview, and we've added some information from last week based on some of the questions we did get during the presentation. This was signed March 11th, which is not too long ago, but it's pretty complicated. So the poor regulatory bodies have been doing their part, and the carriers are trying to do their part to get everything done as quickly as possible, but definitely a short time period for a complicated piece. So many provisions, there's a lot to it, as I said earlier, but we're going to be focusing on the premium assistance. So it applies to Federal COBRA and CalCOBRA, and this is the ability where you can elect COBRA or CalCOBRA and get it for free for certain time period. So the certain time period we're alluding to is started already April 1st of 2021 through September 30th of 2021. So if you happen to be on Federal COBRA or CalCOBRA eligibility timeframe within these 6 months, it would cost you nothing to have COBRA or CalCOBRA. So who is eligible? Not all COBRA and CalCOBRA members are actually eligible. So again, we know normal circumstances, ARPA has specific situations that make you eligible for the free COBRA or CalCOBRA premium assistance. And you've probably heard the term AEI. What's an AEI? It's an assistance eligible individuals. And who is that? Those are people that have lost coverage due to either involuntary termination, specifically involuntary, excluding gross misconduct, because that always excludes you from COBRA, the CalCOBRA in general, or involuntary or voluntary reduction in hours. People weren't clear about this. So termination has to be involuntary. It can't be just I resigned on my own. However, the reduction hours could be, hey, I'm getting older, I like working here, but I don't want to work 5 days a week. I'd like to drop down to 3 days a week, for example. That could still qualify me for the CalCOBRA subsidy. And why I use that example is because the criteria does not also have to be COVID related. So, you know, maybe someone did reduce their hours because their kids still aren't in school and they need to be home with the kids, and so they need to commit to less hours to working. That's kind of a quote unquote COVID situation, but ARPA does not require these two situations to be COVID related necessarily. They just have to be an involuntary termination or an involuntary or voluntary reduction of hours. Moving on, so an AEI can qualify in 3 ways. First, they become newly eligible for COBRA or CalCOBRA starting April 1st forward. So they're newly eligible for either. The second one is for either COBRA or CalCOBRA. They have been eligible and their eligibility timeframe continues into at least April 1st or beyond. So you could have 1 month left of federal COBRA and you can get 1 month of free COBRA, assuming your last month of federal COBRA is April of 2021. Now this last bullet point, please pay attention in the sense that this only applies to federal COBRA, not CalCOBRA. And what this does is this is giving COBRA eligible members a second chance. So this applies to people that were offered COBRA and said, no, thank you, can't afford that. Or maybe they elected COBRA within their normal time frame that they were given at that point in time, and they took it for a couple months, and then they said, unfortunately, I can't afford it anymore, so I'm now going to term COBRA, but they technically were still had COBRA eligibility left in their window. They were still had some of that 18 months left. So be aware, federal COBRA members in those either of the scenarios can now say, oh wait, I still have COBRA eligibility left, and I was either involuntary or voluntary involuntary reduction in hours, and so now I want to come back to COBRA or sign up for COBRA for the first time. So the clock still starts from the time they were initially eligible, that 18 months. But they can now sign up starting April 1st or later, and they don't have to pay retro premiums all the way back to their original eligibility date. So take a federal COBRA person that, you know, lost their job January 1st, didn't take COBRA. Here it is, May, they're being offered, hey, you can sign up as of April or May for that matter. You can choose what month you want to be enrolled on, and they can have a lapse from that January to April. So they miss that normal window, they get a second chance, but this only applies to federal COBRA per most carriers, which we'll cover. And then just a quick reminder that ARPA doesn't extend anyone's continuation period. It is what it is, which we'll talk to since there's variations with some of the carriers on that one. But in general, it doesn't extend it. You just have to be, quote unquote, lucky to be eligible for CalCOBRA or federal COBRA within this April 1 to September 2020 timeframe, and then you can get to take advantage of the subsidy. The other thing that's really important for members to understand is if you are eligible, not enrolled, but eligible for either another group plan or Medicare, that knocks you out of being eligible for this COBRA or CalCOBRA subsidy. And the member needs to attest that they are not eligible for another group plan. And that can be through a new employer. Maybe they got rehired somewhere or got hired somewhere else and they're eligible for another group plan. maybe they're married and they're eligible to be on their spouse's plan. Either of those situations would knock them out of being ARPA COBRA subsidy eligible. And there are some penalties if you are in a situation where you are eligible for either group or Medicare and you take the ARPA premium subsidy. So it's $250, or if it was more on the fraudulent side and you intentionally knew you shouldn't have it and you took it anyway, you'll have to repay 110% of the premium subsidies that were paid when you were not eligible. And then the last one, this is the key thing here, basically on the calendar. Today is May 26th, and the ARPA notices have to be sent by May 31st, which I realize is a holiday, and hopefully people are able to take the long weekend and enjoy it. But these notices have to be sent out by May 31st. So that's general ARPA. In general, most of this applies to federal or CalCOBRA. So now we're going to jump into what may be different between the two. So if you look at the second bullet point here, there's a question on that second chance that I alluded to that the federal COBRA members can get and not pay retro premiums, but jump back onto COBRA because they still technically have an eligibility time frame and it will be free to them. Does that apply to state continuation or CalCOBRA? And really on April 7th, the Department of Labor came out with some FAQs, which is kind of vague, in a way. What it said is, the state continuation, do you have to be on it or get a second chance? And it said, those who elect continuation coverage under state law will receive the premium assistance. So people were interpreting that two different ways. I know one carrier that interpreted saying, okay, that meant a second chance, and now they're saying no. Now, what happened last week is the IRS came out with some FAQs, which I think were more clear on the state-specific situation. This is stating for state continuation, the extended election period applies to group health plan that is federal COBRA, not state continuation. So this alludes to state continuation. CalCOBRA members do not get that second chance to enroll without having to pay retro premiums. They must have been eligible and enrolled and elected CalCOBRA within their normal eligibility period in order to come over now. So within that 60 days. And then of course, different carriers have interpreted this a little differently, as we always see. So Humana was great. They came out pretty early and they were already with the clear understanding that, hey, CalCOBRA members do not get a second chance like federal COBRA members do. Anthem initially released a document which was very good, but it was at the enterprise or all 14 state levels, so it was kind of vague. So it said, some states may or some states might not. And then Principal, they came out early and they said that they would allow a second chance for CalCOBRA members. So we'll see if they change that now that this better IRS FAQ was released last week, but at this point in time, they have not advised that. All right, another item where federal and state continuation may be different is in the time period that people can be on the plan. So think to your normal COBRA and CalCOBRA days. Federal COBRA members can get up to potentially 36 months with a combination of the first 18 months is federal COBRA. And then there's a potential additional 18 months for federal COBRA groups through CalCOBRA for a total of 36. First 18 from federal, second 18 from CalCOBRA. Be aware that this CalCOBRA extension does not apply to dental and vision. So a lot of our ancillary carriers, as you're going to see later in this presentation, are stating no, you either have to be in your first 18 months of federal COBRA or a group that's truly CalCOBRA eligible. And CalCOBRA members can always get 36 months. So I do want to because I don't think I was clear before, that ARPA and the premium subsidy is applying to medical, dental, and vision. It's just for the federal groups. If they've extended their first 18 months, they usually get an additional 18 months of CalCOBRA, but this would not apply to dental and vision. So that's why a lot of our ancillary carriers are saying no, federal groups don't get that additional 18 months of CalCOBRA. All right, so questions have come from this. One is, how long do the federal COBRA members get for the premium subsidy? And the CalCOBRA members, how long? And we have a couple carriers that vary on this, which we'll show you. So what we're trying to point out is when you're a federal COBRA group, you really need to look back to who is an AEI. Well, you need to look back to November of 2019 to anyone that was involuntary terminated or had that reduction in hours. For CalCOBRA groups always get 36 months. So you then are looking back to AEIs that have been on CalCOBRA and paying along the way since April of 2018, because they would still be in their 36-month window at April or beyond, depending on their specific date. So just be aware of that. And then the fun begins when you had a larger group of 20 plus, they were federal COBRA, the pandemic came and had a big effect on their group. They had to lay off a bunch of people. And so now in 2021, maybe they're a CalCOBRA group, they're under 20. And so this means that members back that were eligible for federal COBRA back in November 2019, once you're on federal COBRA, you stay federal COBRA. So you wouldn't jump to CalCOBRA just because the group is now CalCOBRA in this upcoming year. So just something else to consider. All right, what happens as far as premiums? So be aware that for federal COBRA groups, the employer is going to be paying the insurance carrier the COBRA premiums, and then the employer is going to be reimbursed for those COBRA premiums through a payroll tax credit, actually it's coming specifically from Medicare. For CalCOBRA groups, members do not pay CalCOBRA premiums. The carrier will be reimbursed through a tax credit as well. So federal COBRA is through the employer, and they'll be reimbursed. They have to pay for the COBRA member, and then they'll be reimbursed through a payroll tax credit. And then CalCOBRA premiums, the member doesn't actually have to submit money in, but the carrier is reimbursed for those members' CalCOBRA premiums through a tax credit. Because it's May 26th and this started back April 1st, and most people probably haven't even been notified about this possibility of free CalCOBRA and COBRA, we're getting asked, okay, so what if someone took and paid for their COBRA, CalCOBRA, April 1 forward? What happens, because it should have been free, assuming they qualify and assuming they're still eligible? Well, the member can request to have what they already paid for April and say May at this point towards future premiums, so that probably October 2021 forward, or ask to be reimbursed, and then the carrier or the employer has to reimburse within 60 days. So the person that should have had or was eligible to have free federal COBRA or CalCOBRA as of April 1 will get their money back. They do have to request it, and they will be coming back the direction. All right, so now we're moving on to our carriers and how they're all handling this. So we always like to say at Beere&Purves, the poor carriers all have different interpretations of the regulations when they come out, and then of course there's operational issues as well. So who we have, in our opinion, complete information from is listed in this first column. You can see the medical carriers are CalChoice and United Healthcare, and a lot of the ancillary carriers really have come out with some detailed information. We have almost or a good part of information from the carriers here in the middle. Who we have not really heard any official information from is Cigna plus Oscar and Covered California for small business. But we do have some information, just not the details. So moving on, the good news is for CalCOBRA, who has to send all these notices that have to go out by May 31st? And the answer is everyone agrees. There's no dispute that the carrier is responsible for sending CalCOBRA notices to potential AEIs. Even the two carriers that have not officially released anything have acknowledged that, yes, the carrier is responsible for submitting CalCOBRA notices out to the AEIs. The trick is, will the carrier require some action by the employer or not? Which takes us to the next slide. So the carriers to the far left under the no column are not requiring any action from the employer itself. There's a little caveat with United Healthcare. So these carriers, Aetna, CalChoice, HealthNet, United Healthcare, Choice Builder, and Humana, will be looking into their records and sending the CalCOBRA notices directly to the potential AEI. United Healthcare, if someone does testify that they are a qualified AEI, will come back to the employer and just say, hey, will you verify this information? Everyone else under the no column are saying, hey, we'll send it directly to them. The member has to attest that they are eligible, because they qualify under one of those two situations, and that they they're not eligible for either group coverage or Medicare. And as long as the member attests to that, they're going to proceed. These carriers in the middle are saying, hey, we do need help from the employers. So for example, the carriers might not know if it was a voluntary or involuntary termination, and they need the employer to verify that. So for example, Anthem came out early this week, and they've sent a notice out to all small groups, not just CalCOBRA groups, but all small groups. Only the CalCOBRA eligible groups need to reply, so that Anthem can then send all the notices out to the CalCOBRA AEI. And so there's a spreadsheet. When you get this presentation, there's a link here to the spreadsheet that the Anthem small groups that are CalCOBRA eligible need to complete, and they need to do so on a monthly basis between now and September, notifying Anthem of the eligible AEIs. Delta Dental, Guardian, example, they also need you to certify. MetLife has provided a template kind of similar to Anthem, so we've linked out to it that, again, the employer needs to send on a monthly basis to let MetLife know who is eligible. Principal asked, they were one of the first ones to be clearly communicating, hey, you need to tell us, Mr. Employer, by May 12th, who is a potential CalCOBRA AEI. And then BSP is saying they're going to need some information as well. So the carriers on the left require nothing except for UHC. If someone does elect, they will come back to the employer and verify, whereas the carriers in the middle are saying, hey, we need help identifying who these people are, and then we will send a notice. And then we are pending information from Cigna plus Oscar, Covered California, and Kaiser. All right, this is an interesting one. So as I alluded to before, CalCOBRA members usually get always 36 months of CalCOBRA. However, we have two medical carriers that are stating, yes, CalCOBRA is normally for 36 months, but the CalCOBRA subsidy is specific to only 18 months. So CalChoice and United Healthcare are stating you only get the subsidy if you're in the first 18 months of your CalCOBRA election eligibility period. The carriers here in the middle are acknowledging, no, CalCOBRA is 36 months as long as you're on CalCOBRA, you qualify as an AEI, you've been paying all along, you don't get that second chance to enroll, then you can be back onto it from April of 2018. And then the far right, these are the carriers we're pending from. All right, the second chance, the second bite at the apple, as I alluded to, Federal COBRA members definitely get a second chance to say, oh, it's free now? Okay, yeah, I do want to take COBRA after all and enroll. Most carriers, especially after the IRS FAQ last week, are stating, no, there's not a second chance for CalCOBRA members like there's for Federal COBRA. We do have a couple of carriers are stating, oh yes, CalCOBRA members can get a second chance. So maybe, again, my earlier example, they were eligible in January, normally have 60 days with CalCOBRA. January and February came and went, they didn't enroll, so you would have thought that their chance was gone. CalChoice and Principal are saying, oh, well, if they elect now, they can come on April 1st forward and not pay retro premiums. Next topic is for the Federal COBRA groups that usually qualify for that CalCOBRA extension. What happens here, you're going to see, again, a lot of the carriers don't have to give the dental and vision for that additional 18 months through CalCOBRA. So a lot of the ancillary carriers are saying no. But most of the medical carriers are saying yes. So, and we'll see, I've heard from some of these carriers over to the right that they are going to do it, but it's just not official yet. So we'll move this over when it's official. But I think you're going to find that most carriers are going to be giving that Federal COBRA member that additional 18 months of CalCOBRA. All right, the last topic is really for CalCOBRA groups. Part of the ARPA subsidy is that if the employer allows it, a member could come on or be on now and switch plans. Usually once you are eligible, you have to get the plan that you're currently on. You can't switch plans. With ARPA, it specifically says it's up to the employer if they want their CalCOBRA members to be able to switch plans. Different interpretations on this one. So you're going to see most carriers are saying yes, CalCOBRA member can switch plans. Be aware, It can't be a more expensive plan. So you can't say, oh, free coverage, I'm going to get the best plan now because I'm not paying for it. It has to be equal cost to the one you are on as an active employee, or something lower, less cost effective. I keep saying effective, didn't need to. Less costly. All right. These carriers, however, are saying no. Federal COBRA members can choose a plan, if a different plan that's a lower cost if the employer allows it, but CalCOBRA members don't have that right. All right, and then, this sounds great. I definitely want to take advantage of free COBRA or CalCOBRA for the 6 months, potentially, if I'm eligible during that full 6 months. But then what happens? Because I really want to jump back over to the individual policy or individual exchange at that point, because I probably get a subsidy. That does appear in California to be a special enrollment. So you can take the free COBRA for up to that 6 months through September 30th, and then you can jump over, once you're going to start being charged for it, over to the Covered California Individual Exchange. And if you qualify for the subsidy at that point, which has become more generous, you can do so. All right, so I know this is a lot of information, but if you look here, we have all the medical carriers on the left, and we have ancillary carriers to the right. And this, we thought, maybe is a better visual to kind of summarize this information as well. So again, the good news is all the carriers say, hey, for CalCOBRA, the carrier will be sending those notices. The second column or second row, however, states, will the employer be involved at all in sending these notices? And you'll see that for the medical carriers, most say no. A couple do say yes, so beware. In general, is CalCOBRA 18 or 36 months? In general, if you look across here, most carriers agree that's 36 months. Then the second chance for the CalCOBRA members, like the federal members. In general, most carriers are saying no, they don't get the second chance. And then for the federal COBRA groups, do that additional 18-month extension. And right now, most people are saying no or pending on this one. And the last one is, can I downgrade plan designs when I move over to the free subsidy? And some carriers are saying no, but most are saying yes. But I will throw in, I'm pretty sure I didn't say it earlier, a member is given 90 days to elect a different plan if they want to. So they get a little longer than the 60 days that if they get those model notices and are advised, hey, you get free subsidy, they have to respond in 60 days. For the plan change, it's 90 days. All right, so that's a lot of information. As I alluded to, some information may change, even though we're getting down to the wire here. So I just want to point out that we do have all the stuff we are keeping on our website. So I'll just show you kind of where that is real quick. We have a web page on our website, and as you scroll down, you'll see each carrier. We link out to the documents that they released, etc. So that's always a great source, or as always, just reach out to us and we're happy to help you. So that was the presentation. And at this point, I'm going to take a look at some questions. So feel free, again, to put those in the question area. Sorry, guys, 1 sec. All right, do we have any questions? We do have a lot of questions. Okay, I'm going to start from the bottom because sometimes as I'm speaking, some of the information is answered. All right, so first question I see here is, will Anthem allow a current CalCOBRA member to change plans? At the open enrollment, yes, but not specifically to the subsidy. So ARPA is not changing any of the normal CalCOBRA rules. So you're right, April and May, they wouldn't be able to switch plans, but if the group's open enrollment is June and they're still on CalCOBRA, they would be given the same rights as someone else. Okay, and I can verify that with Anthem specifically. Blue Shield has actually released information. I will tell you that they do believe that the second chance applies to CalCOBRA. We'll see if that changes. They also acknowledge the 36 months for CalCOBRA members and federal COBRA members. So they say that they would get that additional 18 months as a on CalCOBRA for Federal COBRA group. So we do have information on Blue Shield. Moving on to CalChoice. Yeah, so we questioned it. CalChoice said, hey, CalCOBRA groups get a second chance, like the Federal COBRA groups, and I went back and verified that, and they are stating, yes, that is in fact the way they're doing it, even though some of the carriers within CalChoice are doing it differently directly. So I understand the question, but that's the information we have. The subsidy will apply to medical, dental, and vision. It may not apply to dental and vision for that second 18 months on Federal COBRA groups that get the 18-month extension on CalCOBRA. But for normal CalCOBRA, it's applying to medical, dental, vision, HRAs, et cetera. Okay, there's a question because CalChoice released some information that was very good and detailed, and it caused some confusion. So they have a date in there, I think it's June 14th actually, where they're requiring information back from the employer. So in their information, they are acknowledging the notices have to be sent to federal members and CalCOBRA members by May 31st. But that June 14th date is for once a Federal COBRA group has notified potential AEIs, and whoever they've heard from by June 14th, they need to fill out a spreadsheet. It's actually a form that CalChoice has created, and send that to CalChoice by June 14th. So that's the confusion with that date. The notices have to be out to those Federal COBRA groups by May 31st, but they're asking for the employer to let CalChoice know of those Federal COBRA AEIs who's actually electing. Hopefully that answers that one. But lots of questions around that one. Okay, yes, there's a question here of the lovely, the group was CalCOBRA, moved to Federal COBRA. So those are tricky and does create issues. So you have to look at it from the time the member was first eligible, which, you know, we're pushing on that one to see what happens because we kind of have partial information on that one. So we might have to circle back on that one, I'm sorry, but it definitely is an issue. All right, so a question on whether they qualify. So if someone left for another job, even if they did not elect coverage under the new employer, they are not eligible for the subsidy. That is correct. Again, it's not enrolled under another employer or Medicare, it's eligible. And the Department of Labor has been very clear about the distinction. Yeah, good question. I don't know why some of the carriers are stating that CalCOBRA members don't get the full 36 months, but we've asked a couple times and they're adamant that no, only CalCOBRA members only get 18 months, just like the Federal COBRA, but I would say most carriers are saying no, CalCOBRA members get 36 months. Yes, second chance to enroll only applies to Federal COBRA. Okay, I think I rattled through some of the questions. Again, we'll look at them, making sure that we didn't miss any, and some I know I didn't have a complete answer for, so we'll circle back with the carriers and get back to you as well. Really appreciate everyone's time today. If you have ideas for future webinar topics, just let us know. We will be sending out a copy of today's recording, and like we didn't do it last week, and we'll send a copy of the presentation as well. I know we didn't do that last week. We're trying to make it more complete, and I do think hopefully we'll hold out for Kaiser, be able to throw that in and make it more complete and helpful. But always just reach out to us. It's probably the easiest thing is give us a call or email. We're always happy to help. Thank you very much for everyone's time today and your partnership with Beere&Purves, and take care.